The format of this meeting is a 10-minute speaker, our secretary's announcement, a coffee break, a snack break, and our main speaker. Our first speaker tonight is Chris. Give her a hand. I mean, Kathy. I apologize.
That's okay. I was very rude to you when you asked. And accept mine. Okay. Hi, my name's Kathy, and I'm an alcoholic. And I was super rude when I was asked to lead the 10 minutes because I've never led a meeting. I mean, I've led a meeting, but I've never done a 10-minute pitch. I've never done a longer than a 10-minute pitch because, I'm coming up on 14 years. Because I was so sick of myself and my story when I came back, I couldn't even stand it. I didn't want to tell it to anybody, except through the steps and the step work. I didn't want to do it on a group level. So my sobriety date is November 24th, 2009. I have a sponsor. I have a couple sponsees. I have a home group. It's the Monday night women's drive-through at 6 p.m. in Manhattan Beach. I have a commitment there. I used to have a commitment here. That was fun. I could just come up here and talk smack and walk away and kind of remain anonymous and let you guys know me a little bit, which is how I kind of like things, because it's safe. Because right now I wish I had blood pressure medicine. You got that? Some water. I'm serious, but. No, I really am serious. So I'm going to try not to suck because I've never told my story before, and luckily it's only 10 minutes to torture you with that you'll never get back. I am a real alcoholic, but I heard somebody describe the way their alcoholism manifested, and I'm now stealing it. Their alcoholism manifested in needle marks and handcuffs, and that's how mine did, and at a very young age, and. I am so powerless over alcohol, there was no breaks from the very beginning, none. There was no line that couldn't be crossed or wouldn't be crossed. The only question was more, and how we were going to get more. I paid a lot of consequences. I went to all those places where you walk slow and drink a lot of water, and you nod to say hello, and you keep your hands in your pockets when you walk. Every level that California had to offer, I went on those rides, and it didn't, I hate being up here. Oh, God, thank God.
You want me to stay here with you?
Will you, please? Okay, so.
This is for you.
Oh, we don't Zoom anymore? Oh, that's good. Okay, so I went to all those places. And nothing ever made me want to stop using. Or drinking. And I know I'm an alcoholic because in those places when you can't get what you like, you lay a batch of hooch, right? So I'm going to do something to change my head because that's the kind of alcoholic I am. You can go now. It's okay.
Here,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you.
And so I'm going through these revolving doors, in and out, and my life is disgusting. And my mom's still one of my biggest fans, and she doesn't understand why I do what I do. And so one time she comes to see me, and I'm at Civil Brand, and she says, "Why do you do this? Why, after you kick like a dog on the floor of the county jail, do you go back and do it again?" And I said, "Because I earned it." And I meant it. There was just nothing in my mind comprehended stop. And every time in Los Angeles back then, we're talking about the early 80s, they always said, do you want to go to treatment? Do you want to go to treatment when you got into it? I'm like, no, I do not want to go to treatment because it would take too long to get there, and all they're going to do is hold me up from going and doing what I wanted to do. And so after years of this, and in there somewhere, I did briefly get married, and then I had a daughter, and my mom has my daughter. And this is what the beginning of the end for me, because my mom's got this beautiful little girl, and all of a sudden there's not enough dope in the world to fill the hole in my gut from not being around my daughter and not being around my family and living the way I'm living. And it was just, I don't know when that shift was, because I had been a foul little bunny for, a very long time. But that's what the process started for me, where I couldn't live the way I was living and I didn't know what to do. And so finally, the last time that I was in one of those fine, lovely institutions, one of my friends I'd known since I was a teenager, she was in their treatment center that was inside there. And so I'm like, I want to go. They said, you can never come in here. But when you get out, take my card and give me a call and I'll help you get in. So they did. And that was my first introduction to the rooms. And it was through a different program. It was through NA. But what I saw there was hope. I saw hope. There were people just like me that should have been living in a cage that had their kids. They had jobs. They talked about things that I knew nothing about, like paying insurance, paying their bills, having driver's licenses. And I didn't know anything about that kind of stuff. And it's funny now, but that's the part. Okay, so back then the meetings were an hour and a half, and I liked the meetings because of the hope, but those coffee breaks, I couldn't do it, man. I couldn't do it. I was terrified. I didn't know how to talk about things because all I knew was who had the bag, who was Zooming who was on the yard, and they were, again, talking about getting their kids back, having jobs, paying their insurance, and I didn't have that experience. So I didn't stay sober, clean, whatever term you want to use for that program. 5 minutes. Oh, it's going good. We're getting there. I'm not going to die tonight. So that was like in the mid-90s, and it took me like a year and a half to get any time together, and then I would get a couple months, and then I would end up struck loaded. And I learned a lot of stuff. I learned PMS is real, that shit will get you loaded, and I should be duct taped and put in a closet. No, serious. And I learned other stuff, but I forgot because it lost its relevance after I learned those lessons. But it took me, because I had no life experience, I had no idea how to deal with any emotion that came up besides anger. And that's all I had was anger and loaded, and I preferred loaded, or fear and loaded. And so I got loaded, I relapsed a lot, and I learned these lessons. And so after about a year and a half, I started on my first 3 years. And what happened was that when you removed the drugs and the alcohol from me, my life got so exponentially better immediately that I didn't do the work. I didn't do what they said to do laid out in the book the way it's laid out. I would get like through step 4 and, throw up my story, and then that would be it, and do the 5, but never 6, 7, or keeping going. I didn't do anything completely, and I got what they say you get. Half measures got us nil. I'm paraphrasing poorly, and but that's what I got. So after 3 years, I got loaded, and then I got sober again, and then I got 3.5 years, and I got loaded, and I was out for a spectacularly brutal 4.5 years. And in the 3 years and the 3.5, I got my daughter back, I'm in school, I've got jobs, I'm doing all those things I didn't know anything about, and so I'm learning those life skills too. In fact, I had gone to school so much I was in law school when I relapsed, and that last time, before that long, brutal relapse. And what had happened was I started drinking, and because it was different, I went to Michigan, and it was different there, and the meetings were different, and I had no spiritual program because, again, I had never worked all the steps. So I'm stuck out here in this place where I don't know the people, and they're different, and I'm not doing anything I'm supposed to do because, I don't know what I'm supposed to do because I've never done it. I'm just flopping around, not drinking or using, and our book is real clear. There's going to come a day when you do not have a mental defense against the first drink. And that day came when I was in Michigan, and so I'm drinking, and I end up coming back, we're running out of time. So my brother gets killed right after I get back. Like the night that I shoot dope, he gets killed. And I think God's punishing me when I find out and I also think, because I'm a good little dope fiend, no one can blame me now for what I know is about to happen, because it's not going to stop. And it didn't stop for years. So that goes on till 2009. I blew up my family again, my child who had come to trust me. I drug her through a whole nother few years of disgustingness, and that poor baby. She's 32 now. Let me just tell you, I walked her down the aisle last year. I'm her first call all the time. I spent 20 minutes on the phone to her driving back from Palm Springs because she's looking for hotels for me to go up and visit them. They live in Seattle now. So I guess are we out of time yet? Can I be done? You have a minute. Okay, good. Let me just wrap this up. If I can say anything, like I said, I have almost 14 years. I have a great relationship with my family that's left alive. In the 14 years, I have done all the things that they've said to do, laid out the way they laid them out, and I've been able to reap those benefits. And it's true that you don't get to keep them if you don't continue to do it, because I ebb and flow. Everybody gets their turn in the washing machine. And my dad died, and I walked through that sober. He lived with me on hospice, and he died one of my biggest fans. My mom passed in 2019. She was one of my biggest fans. I am the person they trusted, the one that they would lock the door and didn't have keys, the one they wanted to call the police. Okay, they did call the police on a lot. I'm the one. I'm the one that they trust, and that is like one of the hugest gifts, is that I'm trustworthy. I'm a good mother. I'm a good employee. I'm a pretty good human when I'm not in my own way, and I'm going to be done. So thank you.
Give it up one more time. Will you guys please join me in the serenity prayer? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you. Now our main speaker will share his experience, strength, and hope. Please join me in a warm welcome for Chad.
My name is Chad, and I am an alcoholic. And my drug of choice is yes. So if that offends you, tell your God to gripe at my God, because I asked my God to let me share his message and not mine. So if you come at me, I'll probably hurt your feelings. Just throwing that out there. I have not found it necessary to get drunk since 12/3 of 2005. And my first group of old timers, I didn't really have like one sponsor ever throughout my entire sobriety. I've had a group of drunks that were closed-mouth, trusted friends that I could share my everything with, and I have multiple men today and a couple of women that know my entire life story. It's not just one. I have to have them all. I am the psychotic drunk. I am the one that goes to insane lengths. I am the one that will have a house, have a truck, and still be homeless in the worst part of Southside Fort Worth because I got so high I couldn't find my truck. Like, that's where it is. And it took this homeless dude named Blue at this liquor store in Stop 6 to tell me where my truck was, because we were camping out together behind the liquor store, and then we would clean the parking lot of all the cigarette butts every day to get a couple of 40s, and I would go in to get them, and they'd call the cops on me, but Blue would go in and get them, and it was all good, because wrong color, wrong neighborhood. It was weird. It was a reverse profile setup compared to what you hear in the news. I lived it. It was quite entertaining. Just to jump right back, I don't know how my story's never linear, so if that bothers you, hold on, it's going to get weird. I was born in Dallas, Texas, at St. Paul Medical Center. My dad had a house on a golf course in Farmers Branch. He was an engineer, worked for an aeronautics company, and my mom was an executive with Braniff Airlines. And I was the first whoopsie in the bunch. I'm the third of 5 kids. My older brother is 9 years older than me, and my sister's 12 years older than me. So I got stuck with middle child syndrome and oldest child syndrome all at the same time. I don't know if that did anything or not. I really don't know. None of this is what made me alcoholic. Most of what I tell in my story is not what made me alcoholic. It's just shit that happened that I've had to walk through and work on after I got sober, because part of my disease was I would run from everything, so I get really drunk and really high and do really insane shit. And both my parents are Jehovah's Witnesses. Did not make me an alcoholic. Just gave me a staunch religious belief system that was insane. And it's not my religion today. It's not mine of choice. I prefer not any religion. I prefer a spiritual way of existence. I do use the term God because I didn't know how to in the beginning. I hated that thing. I hated it. It was the reason why I was still here. I hated it. And the last 2 years of my drinking, I did a little scenario called Get High to Die. I did absolutely as much stuff as I could and got as drunk as I could on an everyday basis, hoping I would not come to the next day. And every morning I came to, I cussed that God out. That was where my prayer life began. You know, and anyways, with that, I grew up Grapevine, Texas, nice little house, pool, couple of cars. Everyone had a car when they needed it. Like, we weren't rich by any means. When my parents passed, there was nothing left for me or my brothers. I think me, my brother, and my sister all split the bill, you know, like that's the way it went. But what I was taught was integrity and morals, even though I rebelled completely against them through the majority of my life. And I still get to be grateful for that today. I broke every ounce of trust that my mother and father had for me over the years. My brothers didn't want me around. The one that wanted me around was my older brother, but he got high like I did. So it kind of worked most times, except when we were trying to steal from each other. That worked out real weird. There's a couple good fights right there, I'll tell you what. But at my first drunk was pivotal. I was on we would go camping down the Frio River, down the hill country of South Texas every year. And there's this camp called Jurgens River Bend that we'd all get, and we'd have like half the campsites, all the people from my parents' church. And I didn't like any of them dudes because they were like, they didn't know what fun was. Like, they were like, we have to ask if we can jump off the cliffs. I'm like, no, we don't. Let's just go. What's wrong with you? Like, you know, it just, stuff like that. And there was these, I was 14, there was this group of high school kids that just graduated high school, and they were like on their first camp out without any parental figures, and they thought I was cute and funny because I was a trash-talking little fool, and I had this curly hair, and just like, and I'd run around and act a fool and do whatever it took to get people to like me. And so they invited me to come party with them one night, and then that night I got drunk, stoned, and laid all in the same night. And I decided this is what I was born for. Like, deep down in my core, this is what I was born for. And I knew I had to seek that from then on. And then I started high school the next year, and I'd meet my buddy Frosty, was his real name. I showed cattle in high school, I rode rodeo, and I played golf and soccer until I got caught playing soccer by my parents. They realized I forged their name, and then so I got booted out of there, but that's a whole other story. That was some weird religious beliefs on their end. But, yeah, so it's like, that's where it went. And I'd meet Frosty at the barn at like 5 in the morning. We'd split a fifth of Jack, and that would get us till noon. And then at noon, we'd go hide. There's this, in between the two campuses by the high school, there's a junior high and a high school here. There's this bridge with a big old huge like 10-foot culvert underneath it that a creek ran through. We'd go sit down in that culvert and get as stoned as we could to make it through the rest of the day. And then the security guard named Barney, he looked like Barney Fife, if you know who it is. That shit's funny. He really did. We called him Barney. And he really liked good weed, and I had good weed, so I started hooking him up, and then we no longer had to go to school. And then I started selling weed to my attendance lady, and so then I didn't have to go to school, and it looked like I was at school. And so I'd always had this weird knack to be able to control and manipulate the system to work out for my betterment, even though it really harmed me in the end. But in what I wanted, I got it. You know, I got it. I figured it out. At 17, I was bar backing at this little bar. My parents didn't know this, and called Will Hoyt's over there in Grapevine. And I would go in and I'd bar back every night after school. I'd stock the beer for all the beer girls. And then Friday and Saturdays, I was making $200 or $300 a night doing that, bar backing, stocking beer, keeping the trash out, all that stuff. Got to drink for free, so that worked out real well. I learned about the white powder form of alcohol that I call cocaine, and did that as much as possible. Started getting tied up with all kinds of different people, running with kind of crazy crowd. Got tied into some insane stuff. My disease took me to places I don't share from podiums because it might still haunt me today in a way that would harm the people that are around me today. You know, and there's stuff I have to live with where I've done everything I can to make amends for it. But at 18 in that bar, this one lady came up to the bar. I heard I'd been flirting for the last year while she was waiting on me to turn 18. She was older. She had a very wealthy husband. I say that because it's fact. Back then, I didn't believe it. Everyone was telling me that, but I didn't believe it. And then it happened. And on my 18th birthday, it's supposed to be my first bartending shift. She drops $1,000 on the counter and says, "Here's your tip out. You're coming with me, and we're going out for the night, and I'm taking you out for your 18th birthday." And I'm like, whatever. So we hop in her Maserati. And when we go, and my bartender's like, "If you don't go, I'm going to beat your ass back in the liquor room all night long. Like, I'm going to walk back and just hit you and then come back out and work." And I was like, I guess I got to go, so I did. That started my adventure of being a young male escort. So from 18 to about 22, I did that. I was with all of her best friends. I worked a job at bars, and I got a distorted sense of sex. I got a perception that wasn't based on what it should have been, that didn't match the moral values I was given as a kid. And so I began to drink to hide and stuff all of that on top of everything else. And that once I start, I can't stop. And it didn't make sense to me, but life's still fun. It's a great party. I always have money in my pocket. I have brand new clothes. I have a cool Jeep. I have this. I have all these things, and everything looks amazing on the outside. But inside, I am completely and utterly dead. I was given an amazing grandfather that I'd go spend summers in Kansas with, that I would build custom craftsman homes with him. He would go buy a condemned home on one side of Wichita and move it to a neighborhood that he had bought and built and paved and did all the stuff for, and we would build one every summer. I was given a trade craft ability that was beyond most anyone my age could ever think of. But I was on this other life. I have these skills, but I couldn't tangibly understand that I'm more than what I was being told I was by these people I was surrounding myself with. So I was absolutely, basically a bottomless, empty pit of what I wish I could be, but I didn't know how to be because I was stuck where I was at, because it's the only thing that made me feel good. I don't know if that made sense. I don't know where that came from. I think it's the first time I've ever said that one. But it's like... And it went on, and at 22, I got caught up with a whole bunch of other stuff. I started catching DWIs. I had to sell the limousine. I had to get rid of the tire shop that I was using to clean up different money, and I had all kinds of shit going. And then I no longer had my buddy, Big Baby, to drive us around in the limo to go to the clubs and pick up the girls that worked for me and go take them to other clubs, and chaos 24/7. I barely slept. I sleep a couple days every other week, if that. There's a couple times where they just called me the sprint and coast guy. I would get as much booze and as much dope as I could, and I would not sleep for weeks on end. I went through a little battle where I would stay drunk all the time, and then I would do meth for a few months, and then to get off meth, I would do heroin for a few months, and then to get off heroin, I would do meth for a few months, and that rotation it worked for me for a little bit, for a little bit. It worked. But ultimately it didn't. And then I got in the scared spot, and I got an opportunity to move out to West Texas. Some friends of my older brothers bought a bunch of land when their son, he got insurance money from their son being killed in a car wreck in Florida, and they bought this big ranch out in West Texas, out in Palapena County, and they said, "You know horses, you know cattle, we need you, come live with us. Let's get you away from all this chaos." But they smoke weed and drink and take Adderall to keep up during the day. So I'm like, all right, this is normal shit. Okay, it's legal, right? And so we're going that route. Needless to say, I get run off from working on their ranch anymore. 4 other ranches pick me up. I work with them on day work. I work at the little store in town, and I go pump oil wells for this one guy that drills wells and does that. So I'm keeping his oil coming out of the ground and his gas, and I'm making a living and building a name and having a great time doing the same shit out there, just with less drugs. But it's the same amount of booze. It's all there, the same stuff, same behaviors. The sex stuff's still weird. I get this great relationship. Not really. It was more like, hey, you're hot. Hey, you're hot. Let's go. Okay, here. Hey, that's all this is, though, girl. That's all I told her. That's all this is. And then she gets attached. She's like, this guy can get me out of this shithole town when he goes back to town, because he's going to leave here soon. And anyways, her dad was a deputy chief for the Texas State Troopers in that county. And when I broke it off with her, it got real bad for me. They knew my watering hole, a little place called Longhorns, right off Highway 80. We'd have rope practice days here in the roping arena, then we'd go over there and drink. Every night, every evening, that was it. Climb on horse, rope, ride, go drink, and eat Longhorn beef burgers and have a great time. And well, his guys, all of his subordinates at the troopers found out where I was at. And so I got pulled over leaving there at midnight. DWI. course it is. I'm drunk, right? So next night, I'm smart. A buddy of mine's a bondsman, so he just picked me up, whatever, signed on it, we're good. The judge is a friend of mine. His brother's my best drinking buddy, Hooch Slay. The whole county is about the size of L.A. County, and there's 600 total people in the entire county. Like, we're way out there. And so all these people are like people that know me, and anyways, through all that stuff, as it goes through, I go, he's like, do not go back to Longhorns, they have your number. And I'm like, there's no way it'll happen twice in a row. I'm not putting one and one together here at all. I'm more like, that's my spot, I have to go. So the next night I go, but instead of driving on Highway 80, there's a bar ditch right there. So I drive my big truck down into the bar ditch and off on the shoulder and run that all the way back to where I live in this, over off the Old Oak, on the Old Oak Ranch. And they pull me over in the dirt. I'm like, I'm not even on the road. I'm on the ranch I work, and it doesn't matter. There it is, second DWI. So right now I've got arrest in Tarrant County, which is part of the reason why I moved out to Palapinna County, and 2 arrests consecutive, back-to-back, all pending. I haven't been to court for anything yet. All right, so that's all within a matter of a few months of each other, 6, 8 months, something like that. So I get out there, get all that going. I sit down and have a talk I go and do a bunch of work on the district attorney's ranch, and then we have a conversation about how we're going to handle my case. And then I go over to Hoot's house, and his brother comes over, that's Judge Slay, and we discuss how we're going to handle my case. I did not get an attorney. I did a handshake deal in the backyard of a wealthy rancher's house that was a politically tied man out there. I got to have that privilege. And is what we did. We ran all 3 DWIs in the same day. I went to Tarrant County Court at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, and I was in Judge Slay's court at 1 p.m. that same day, and we signed out. He dismissed one of them because he was going to call him harassment, and it shouldn't have happened. And then he gave me, so I had 2 first-time DWIs. I had a 1.5 year probation on each, and Judge Slay's like, kid, it might be a good idea to just get out of this area. Like, Palapinna, Parker County, you need to go back at least to Tarrant County for now until that guy's over you. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I did that, moved back to Dallas-Fort Worth, and I jumped right back in the middle of all that chaos. I went and got my tire shop back, started running all that hustle on the street that I had. Everything just started coming back up. I had a friend of mine, Johnny Waggles. He's an old-timer tweaker guy. Had that, they called it Nazi, or the P-dope that they used to use, where he had this thing with his tongue. It was like a lizard, just constantly, just like, everywhere he went, that sucker was just going. And he's like, you know what, kid? I'll teach you how to drink like a gentleman. And I'm like, this guy's got to know. Look at him. You know, so I move in with him over on the, this is my thoughts, dude. This is how logical I am out there. You know what I mean? And then I go move in with him, and we're roommates, and we're scaling out all kinds of drugs, and I'm only drinking exactly 1 beer and a 2-finger pull of whiskey every night. And I'm telling you, dude, people needed to die every night. Like, you limit what I can drink once it's in me, and there's only one thing left to do. It's harm someone else or myself. You know, and I did that for months before I came completely apart and went on that last hard run and really got after it. And when that hit, they got me another DWI. That revoked all my probation, put me on a no bond hold in Tarrant County. It took a $30,000 cash bond, which I don't know where that came from even entirely. I don't know who paid it or what. I know I gave my attorney, I signed over a check for $10,000 to him, and that covered all, getting me out eventually, and got me on a 10-year felony probation, and that was March of 2005. Notice my sobriety date is December of 2005. So now I have physical management of me being sober. I have people, very powerful people, and an entire law enforcement agency saying, you cannot drink, and we're making sure of it. I was taking a drug test Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every morning at 8 a.m. I was going to an intensive outpatient treatment at MHMR, which in Texas, that's the mental health and mental retardation. And that's where they send people like me for an outpatient program. I was illegally driving a huge, like a $40,000 Dodge Cummins dually to that site and back. It wasn't mine. It belonged to a partner of mine because I couldn't really own anything anymore, because if I did, I wouldn't get the free help. I'd have to pay for all this shit. It was just huge web of just chaos going on. And I ran that like nobody's business. And I did everything I could to control and manage my drinking to the point that I was at that get high to die spot. And what happened there was I got another big check from another side job where I built a bunch of sneeze guards for Carrabba's Italian Grill all across South Central Texas. And me and a buddy of mine would just get really twacked out and go put in these sneeze guards and then collect checks. And so I had this big check, and I went home. I got home, and I said, hey, Dad, let me borrow your truck. Got dropped off at the house. I was like, I can't drive. I blew up my truck, by the way. If you choose to buy booze and partying and the girls and all that and not change your oil after about 65,000 miles of that, a 1998 F-150 four-wheel drive will not run. That's just the facts, my experience. I've had it. And so went in and asked him to borrow his truck, showed him the check. I need to go cash this. I'm going to go get groceries. I'm going to fill up your truck because you've done so much. And you know, being this super charming, like, I'm here to do the right thing guy. And as soon as I got in that truck and got that 10 grand in my hand, gone. 3 months of chaos. My last big run. I don't remember most of it. The one thing I can remember is I went to this one bar with this other dude I didn't really know. I was supposed to meet him there, and they were having this bikini contest. And then the cutest girl there, I liked her, so we started chatting. We do the same thing. She hopped in the truck before the contest was over. We went back to her house and did a whole bunch of hot rails. And then after that, everything's a blur for the next couple of months. Until I'm laying on the floorboard of my dad's truck. I was staying at this flop house with another buddy of mine. This other buddy, he was a convenient friend. By that I mean he was like 4'11", and wore a size 12, and his feet were furry, and he had a big old head. He looked exactly like a hobbit. If you gave him a chance, he's a really cool guy, but he just creeped everybody out. And that's just, these are like real shit. It's what it cracks me up saying it. And so he even said, you can't stay here anymore. Well, it's out of money, drugs, booze. And when I'm out of that, the girls don't want to do what he wants them to do. And so everything gets all crazy. There's a whole manipulated, messed up world I was living in. And he said, you got to go. And if you don't leave in the next 5 minutes, I'm calling the cops. Well, I'm kind of spun, so it's hard for me to really put anything together and get out a door anyway. That takes like an hour when I'm supposed to do it in 5. And so he was calling the cops. I'm laying on the floorboard of my dad's truck. It wouldn't start. It acting like it's out of gas. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how long I laid there. I know I watched the sun kind of move around and start to come up. And I know I'd seen a whole bunch of cops cruise back and forth in that place, way more than normal, even though it's a normal for like every 45 minutes. I think I timed it, and it was like every 12 that night. And I laid there on that floorboard freaking out for I don't know how long. And I said, God, I don't know what to do. Help me. And I climbed up into that front seat, and I cranked that truck, and it started. And I took that 15-minute trip home. I do not know how I didn't kill anybody. I don't know when the last time I'd slept. I was just crawling out on my skin and freaking all the way out. Something different took over me at that moment, and I drove myself straight home, my mom and dad's house. And I pulled in, and I walked in. I had his keys, so they couldn't really lock me out. And they weren't going to change the locks while I still had the truck. Like, that's just, I don't know. I don't know why he didn't call the cops. I would have. If it was my kid, I'm like, you're screwed, bro. It's going to suck. You're getting a joyride, and at the very least, I'm going to insure that. But anyways, pulled right up in the driveway. I walked in the house. I dropped the keys on the table, and I went into my room, which was the old garage. We'd fully renovated it, and I locked myself in and barricaded that up. I grabbed the phone, and I called my little brother, Ryan, and I said, Ryan, I need help. He's like, what the hell? I bet you do. And I'm like, can you pick me up at this time to take me to an AA meeting at this place? And I think this is my last hope. Otherwise, y'all won't ever have to hear from me again. And I didn't know if I was going to kill myself or just totally dip and get way out, like stealing Harleys and pulling bullshit again like I did before I went to West Texas the first time. And he came and picked me up, and he took me to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. He dropped me off. He said, I can get you here, but I got to get up for work, so I'm not picking you up and taking you back home. And I said, okay. I picked this meeting because of a speaker meeting like this, but what happened was the speaker didn't show up. And then for some messed up reason, that's like my third meeting I've ever been to, you know. It's not like I'm a retread or any of that. I was just gaining an experience so I could be willing to get where I'm at today. And I sat down in the back right by that door, like right over there where he's at. And then this one old timer that had like one leg twice the size of the other sat there. His name's Wild Bill. He was a dear friend of mine all up until the day he passed. But that dude sat right about there, and so we're like this far apart. And meeting goes around. At that meeting, they had a tradition that if you have any newcomers in the audience or in the group, that you only talk about steps 1, 2, and 3 when it's just a regular speaker meeting. The regular, like, people bring a topic and share. And it just kind of went all the way around the room, and it came to me, and dude, I got a good 20-minute and share in. I'm so fucking spiritual right then. I saved all their lives. Like, I still believe that to this very day. That's how delusional my thinking was in. And that was the feeling I had. Like, I used all that religious knowledge I was given growing up in the religion I was to really set them all straight, right? And, dude, and I was about 113 pounds. This is about 150, 155 right in there. And that tells you what level of recovery I was really in. And they did the meeting, and they grabbed my hand, and I almost hit the dude that first grabbed it, but he was really big, and I don't think I was in the spot to really get down like I had to if I was dealing with him. Plus, there was a lot of them, and I didn't know any of them, so I had no backup, and so I was like, I let him hold my hand, but I'm freaking out on it, and they do that prayer thing, and they do this, keep coming back, and I'm like, fuck y'all. I spin around as fast as I can to get out that door, and there's that old fucker Wild Bill right at that door. I don't know how he got from there to there in that time, but his old ass did. And I'm standing right there at that door, and he looks at me, and he's like, damn, kid, you look like shit. And I was like, well, that's fucking rude. If you don't like my language, that's just the way it was. I'm telling you the real truth. And then he goes, look, you do look bad enough you might be able to get this. So I'm going to give you a couple tips. And he goes, first off is, I don't give a fuck what you think about God, who God is to you or who he isn't to you, but you're going to need to start saying this. Every morning when you wake up, you say, God, keep you sober. Do not ask him for help because you are beyond human aid. Look at yourself. You're screwed. And I'm like, I could not argue right then. Straight facts right in my face. And I was like, okay, so I say that every morning. I'm like, I can do that. That's no problem. My brain's like, screw this, screw God. I'm like, I can do it. And it's a whole chaos going on. And he goes, and if you get up that morning and you hadn't got high yet, when you said that prayer, you need to go find an AA meeting somewhere near you and find a sober alcoholic to talk to and tell them what the hell your crazy brain is saying. And I'm like, oh, I'll try. I don't know where anything is. And then he told me exactly what meeting's closest to where I live shortly after that. And he says, and if by some miracle you don't get high that tomorrow or get drunk tomorrow, at the end of that day, you need to say, God, thanks for keeping me sober because you are beyond human aid. You need to know from this day forward that alcohol you're drinking is no longer something for you to do anything about. And then it wasn't that I believed him in any way, shape, or form. It was that I was desperate enough to try something different. And that was completely different than anything that was in my mind. So I did the best I could. The next morning I woke up and said, big dog in the sky, keep me sober today. And then I found a noon meeting within a 3-minute walk to my parents' house. So I went to that meeting, and then I met Patrick. Old Patty was an old Irish dude. He had like 30-something years when I first met him. And when I walked in that room, that fool walked up and gave me a hug, and I kicked him. And he just smiled. He's like, yep, you're where you need to be, kid. I'll save you a seat. And he went to the very back row, and he kept one seat open the whole time. And I went and grabbed like 8 cookies, and I paced up and down that back seat. That back row. I didn't sit down for a month. I was that dude right here eating cookies and looking at everybody like, you could die. Maybe you could die. And I was just full on, like, outright delusional, mental defective, gone. Like, there's no reason. He fought old timers, like verbally accosted and abused other old timers that were saying, your buddy has to go. He's disturbing the meeting. And he's like, fuck you. He's a real one. Give up your seat, you prick. And he would just, old Irish Catholic dude from the Bronx, New York, stood up for me. First person in my life ever did something for me without wanting something in return. And I got to pace up and that guy saved my life. But I paced up and down that back row until I could sit down. And then once I could sit down, he said, good job, kid, I'm proud of you. And he slid a piece of cardboard under that one leg because it was a rattling chair. Because I didn't really sit, I vibrated. And then after that, he introduced me to some other young people. And I got sober on December 12/3/05, and then by New Year's Eve, I had a group of other young people around me, and they took me to this sober New Year's thing, and to this thing, and to that thing, and they put up with my chaos, and they had a blast, and they're like, dude, this dude's fucking hilarious. You don't shut up, but fuck, he's funny. And the next thing you know, somewhere around 3 to 6 months, I'm walking back into that room, and some other lady, she scared the shit out of me. She had like that mom devil eyes, like you know you're gonna die when she looks at you. And she had those. She came up to me and she's like, how long you been sober, kid? And I'm like, 3 months. She's like, you have a sponsor? I said, no. She's like, you got 2 weeks or I'm coming for you. And I went, yes, ma'am. Hi, Alice. I'm scared. Let's go. And I found this dude and I called him every day. He taught me, all he really taught me was do the serenity prayer. Anytime I wanted to stab someone, shoot someone, or hurt myself, he's like, just do the serenity prayer and keep walking. And so I did that, and I did that, and I did that. And then one day I walked into a new meeting at the Grapevine Unity Group of Alcoholics Anonymous, and Patrick was at the back door coming in, and I was walking in the front, and he looked at my face, and he said, there's only 3 things my face said. It's I'm going to get high, I'm going to kill myself, or someone else. That's it. Those are my options left. That's where I go when I don't have a spiritual experience that has been sufficient to cure not my alcoholic problem, so to speak, but my mental dilemma. What goes on in here? My inability to think straight, that mental twist. That's what I get. That's what gets fixed by these steps and applying these principles to my everyday life. And he looked at me and saw that, and he said, come on, you don't need a meeting today. We're going for a walk. And I'm like, I need a meeting. I'm going to kill someone. He's like, no, that's why you need to come for a walk. You know, and so he took me out back, and he took me through the steps in about 4 hours. Nothing crazy, nothing thorough, nothing deep, but just enough that I didn't want to die that day, and I didn't want to harm anyone else. He had a piece of paper in his pocket just for that moment for someone like me. And he had a pencil with it, and he handed me those when we got to this little park about 1.5 miles from that club, and he sat me down by this rock. There's a koi pond here. Grapevine's kind of nice little area. It's like Redondo. It's nice. It's got some cool shit, and so he had me sit over there on that, and he goes, all those people you think should die, including yourself, you need to write those names down. Wrote those names down, came back, told me what they do to you. I wrote all that down, took me through a 4-step right there. No clue. He never opened a damn book, none of that shit. He just said, this is what he needs. I'm going to save his life, and we're going to keep moving. And by the time I got back to that 6 o'clock meeting, I now had a commission and a job is to look for someone that wants to kill themselves or someone else or get really high. And then I can do that same trick with them. And then send them on the same mission I was given. And then over the years, I have been given countless old-timers that have always told me the truth. They've never patted me on the ass. They've never been kind. They've never been nice. They've always been kind, but they've never been nice. You know, they've always been straightforward, abrupt. They're willing to hurt my feelings. One looked at me through some chaos in a relationship, and he's like, you want her dead yet? I'm like, hell yeah. He says, cool, we're going to take you to Al-Anon. And then he took me over here and served me up to this one Al-Anon buddy, and that guy took me through the steps of there where I got to understand what the 3 C's are and a whole bunch of other shit, and about who I am and how I need to operate and how to be me all by myself, and how to walk away from messed up shit, how to say no and mean it, how to have those things that go down, and how to separate, how to allow people enough space to try to trust them until they've earned it. You know, and then give it to them, and then if they burn it, just back up. I don't have to go burn them. I can just go, you're good over there, bud. Yeah, just stay there. And then if I need to, they can call me, or I'm down to help them with some recovery. But that goes to my life. They got to go. And if I'm that close to someone else's life and I've done the same, and I'm not willing to own my piece 100% and do what it takes to make it right, then I'm screwed, you know? I'm burning people left and right. I've been known to do that sober. At 7 years sober, I got to do a little stint in the Texas Department of Corrections. So what happens there is I'm on 10 years felony probation for that last DWI, and I piss off the wrong PO because I don't think y'all understand who the fuck I am. I am Chad. I own Caltex Construction. I'm signing a huge deal with some CEOs and execs from Bank of America Finance and the Director of Operations and the Vice President of Highland Builders, because I'm about to be their newest #1 to close deals and make shit happen. And I can't come to your appointment because of that. I have to go to theirs, and then we can reschedule yours. And I got a brand new officer. My first officer, we touched base every Monday until I got an appointment every month. I had a 7 a.m. phone call with him, and I would call him, and he'd be like, what's your schedule like this week? And I'd say, I have open this, this, and this. And he's like, okay, well, I have this and this. And I'm like, shit, next week, cool, click. And we keep doing that until we met up, you know. But this lady was brand new. She didn't know me. She didn't know the work I've been doing. She didn't know the places I've been and what I turned into from what I was. And all she saw on my jacket was that I was really high for the first year of my probation, right? And that I have continually pushed the envelope in every direction. Like, I'm very last minute. I finish all my community service hours at the last minute. I make my payment at the last minute. But I get it done, but that didn't matter. It's the last minute. That told her I wasn't willing. So she had this negative idea. I'll roll in there after I missed the first appointment, and she started giving me a whole ration of how important she is. And so I had her rule book, and then I pulled that thing out, and I picked up my phone, and I went Ego City, called my attorney, said, Don, guess what? We're getting rid of this probation officer. And he's like, oh, shit. That's all he said after that. He says, Chad, you need to step out of her office, tell me what's going on. And I'm like, no, we're good. Here, boom. I set it down, and I read her rules and how she's supposed to act and all this, because I'm a good convict. I know your rules and my rules, because that's the only way I survived when I was in there, right? And so did all that, and then her boss comes in at the tail end of this, because it's like his people called her people, blah, blah, blah. She comes walking in. I'm not really yelling, but I'm definitely loud at that moment, and tells her to pack a box. She's suspended without pay for 2 weeks, and this is a permanent black mark on her record because of what she did. It is not within the regulations of their department, and I walked out proud. I was like, I got him. I got a bad one. Bad cop gone. I did it. I did it. Dude, that's all ego. That's all ego. That's just a woman that didn't know me and trying to do the best job she could. Whatever judgment she had of me, it was my job to fix that judgment by proper actions and understanding, not by you do it or else. And then what happened was they couldn't swap me officers for another 3 months, because that's how long it takes to get on the docket before a judge to plead my case to get a new officer. And so I end up in 3 months of unable to report, because she made it very difficult to her retaliation, to me being a retaliatory prick. And I couldn't make it, it didn't matter. She took me off the ability to see a duty officer. She did everything she could to make it impossible, and it worked. And I got 3 failure reports, and I went before a judge, and that judge had changed from the first judge. The first judge was an old drinking buddy of my attorney's. The new judge was this brand new lady, and she won it by saying, if you've been on probation with us, that was your chance. You now get to do your full term no matter what. And I'm looking at 10 years, and I'm scared, and I can't figure it out. But Alcoholics Anonymous gave me the ability to go be of service, to help others. And I worked with the Texas Youth Recovery Corrections out at McFadden Ranch, and I helped do some level 3 and level 4 reintegration programs with kids coming out of prison. I've been in prison since they were 10, 11, and 12, and they're now turning 18 and entering the real world, and they can't go back to their old neighborhoods, because that's just where it's going to do the same shit again, and recidivism becomes real. And I've been working with that. And that warden got word of what I was walking through and what happened, and went and approached that judge multiple times to set appointments and have meetings, and that judge would not sit with him. And he went in and sat in his courtroom, took a day off from his prison to sit in that courtroom for a full 8-hour day, and demanded she see him until she did. And my court case, my sentence went from 10 years to 3 years in that one moment. And I went in the next day to get sentenced. And when I went in, I signed to 3 years, and that judge gave me till the 17th of May to get my shit in order and get out. So I had to liquidate that entire business that I was so proud of getting and doing, because I did it. I don't do shit, y'all. That's the real thing. I don't do anything right all by myself. I don't have 17 years sober. God gave me 17 years. I have today to develop a new life in a new way on an everyday basis. That lesson was taught to me by one of the first old-timers I ever met that I could hear. He had 30 days less than me. He had 26 before that. And he sat beside me at every meeting that we were both at the Grapevine Youth Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I got 30 days, he stole that chip. And he slid me a 24-hour chip, which is the Desire chip that they give in Texas. It's just a little silver thing. Some of y'all know it, some of y'all don't. But they slid that over to me and says, all you got's today, kid. Don't ever forget it. It's what I did, and look where I'm at. He came in with these sores and liver, jaundice, just jacked, dude. This guy, he was like this far away from having to put a bag on him because his guts were so messed up from all the drinking that when he took off on it. And he sat there every day, and then him and Patrick, when I turned 1 year sober and got to have our birthday meeting and did that and stand up in front of everybody about how great I did, you know, Patrick went up there before me to introduce me. He said, he ain't going to say shit but thank you. And if he says any more than that, we're going to shove him off the stage. And then the leader of the birthday meeting handed him a 1-year chip. And he said, no, that kid don't got a year. Take that back. He only gets this one. And he pulled out a metal 24-hour chip. Instead of the aluminum, I upgraded to the brass. Right? And he handed me that. And he said, don't ever forget is all you have is today. He says, no matter how long you're here, that's all you got. And when I live that way, it doesn't matter what I walk through. It doesn't matter that I formed this new relationship early in recovery, less than 60, 90 days sober. I got this amazing relationship, right? Because, like, everything's amazing right then because I'm finally popping out of a show, and I just did some half-ass step work with a guy, and I've never felt this good in my life, and I have a purpose, and I got to be a dad to a beautiful little girl and raise that little girl for 7 years. But somewhere in that 5 to 6 range, there were some triggers that I had hit on my ex, that's now ex, that person in that relationship, from her harms that she hadn't worked through. And that trip was invisible. Welcome to PTSD sober, even though you weren't in war or military. I don't always see them when they trip, when I get mine hit. But they're little invisible things that some weird little word triggered in her, and then she could no longer treat me and love me the way she once did. And it gradually got worse, and I insisted, being the guy I am, because I need this, because this makes me whole, and not God and all that. And ends up happening is she decides to cheat. I start acting more like an asshole because I'm not getting what I need from her, and she's not getting what she needs from me. And then we start on this head-to-head battle thing on stuff in an emotional level, and we both almost go out. We don't, but we almost do. We do insane things to each other, the family, and try our hardest to not have any harm happen to Catherine on the in-between, you know? And then after that, they ended up costing her job when we were in East Texas. It cost me my job while we were in East Texas because that emotional kid. It's hard to be a good employee when your mind's going fucking nuts all day. And for some reason, it was a good idea to quit smoking at the same time. Every morning, 9 a.m., I'm on the phone with Don V. I'm working at Pegueshurst Ford as a mechanic, as a line mechanic. And I'm pacing back and forth around that vehicle, and I'm like, I'm going to stab this dude. I'm going to stab him. I got to smoke. He's like, no, you don't, kid. You'll be all right. Put down the energy drink and get a glass of water. And I'm like, I'm just like, you know, and I do that for 30 minutes, and I'd go in and work on the car, and somehow I didn't smoke. And next thing you know, I'm done smoking, and that's that. And I decided we're going to give this another shot. If you'll grab some therapy and I'll grab some therapy, and we'll work on these parts of us and see if we can't make this work. And then we have to move back, and my parents had let us have a place back at their house, and we moved back in there, and things are really weird. I'm sleeping on my parents' couch, and she's sleeping in the room, and Catherine has her own room. And I do this for a while. And I explained to her what I would like for Valentine's Day, and she gets me something totally different. And I'm seeing these things that are like where I'm learning stuff about me that I need to act right. I need to know, I need to set boundaries for what's okay to be in my life or not. And she's not fulfilling those and meeting those requirements of what it is to be kind, compassionate, and loving of a significant other. And so I had to make a choice, and I said, here's how this works. I said, we need to make a decision. Either you get off your shit and get on some recovery and helping, or we have to split. And I'm like, you have until blah, blah, blah. I gave her an ultimatum. This is the date you have until this happens. And then she packed all her stuff in a trash bag and took off the next day and went and drained the bank account and like just ran through terror, right? And I had to scramble for the next 3 weeks to make payroll for my guys and all this. Everything's going nuts. It's blowing up. It's not that she did that. It's that I set that ultimatum. I did not do that in a loving, kind way. I did that in a forceful and demanding way. Everything that has happened, no matter what they did, I have a part. And then things moved on. And then I got to be a parent for Catherine full-time for the next 2 years. Christine could not handle being a mom and rebuild her life without my income coming in and all this other stuff, and without her parents' income coming in, and her roommate situation and this. And Catherine came to me one day and says, Dad, I want to live with you. And I went, I don't know how to handle this with your mom. Honest to God truth. First thing I said, I don't know how to bring this to your mom. She's like, it's okay, I'll tell her. And I'm like, oh shit, 5 years old, y'all. You know, and a 5-year-old should never have to be in that position. But me not doing full detail on my inventories and my life caused that. And then shortly after that, a little before I went to prison, all this real chaos kicked in. I'm supposed to take Catherine out in October for Halloween. I'm supposed to have her for Halloween because we got things split back up again where she's settled down. She can keep her these days. I have her these days. And then they're supposed to be moving to Washington because my ex has her new dude, who she's now still married to, and moving to Washington with her parents and all that. And they're all going up there. And I'm like, okay, cool. So you're doing that on this day. So then cool, I can take Catherine for Halloween. And then I get a call from Catherine on like October 8th, I believe, and she's like, I can hear like it, you know, the sound of like a big truck driving down the road, right? That's all I heard in her little voice, and she's like, yeah, I'm right with Papa. We're going to Washington. See da 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 da. And I was like, took everything I had not to react in that moment and just say, okay, good. I hope you have fun. And then get off the phone and then call a friend of mine who is actually a child psychologist and say, what the fuck do I do? And he said, what do you need to do to be okay right now? And I said, I need to call a attorney that can help me with the custody of this little girl because I put all this into it, and that's my daughter. And I went to fight. And then I met with the judge, and I did everything I could to get her back in my life and make sure that happened. That's me doing the same shit that the probation did. But what I got to do was sit down with that same psychologist and have a long talk. And the judge said, when we subpoenaed them to come back to Texas to deal with this stuff, because I had all the notarized paperwork for schools and hospitals and so forth. I was dad for that whole time. And what ended up happening was the judge subpoenaed them and they never came. And when I went to court that day and they weren't there, no excuse, no attorney, no nothing, the judge said, I have marshals that'll go get Catherine and bring them two in right now if you want. Because her parents had joint custody, a conservatorship or something like that, so all that stuff was going down. And I looked at that judge square in the face, and I don't know where this came from. I blame it on that prayer I said that morning of, God, keep me sober. That's how big that prayer is in my life and still is today. It puts me in places to do things I never thought possible every single time. And I got before that judge, and I said, I need you to give me at least 3 or 4 days to think that through, because that's a lot. And I went and I hung out with my therapist buddy, and we drove around on all of his cool cars for a couple of days and had long talks. And I went back before that judge and I said, Judge, I don't think that's the right thing to do, because what I'm going to do is put all of my ex's shit right in front of her daughter's face and then cause more harm between that relationship, which is fledgling at best as it is. And I said, and bottom line is, that's not my daughter, it's not my blood, it's hers and theirs, and I don't believe I have the right to do all that and cause that kind of harm. And I said, but I would like record of all this so that I can put it in a folder that if Catherine ever does show up in my life one day, I can say, I did fight for you. You know. And now all that full circle, I don't know how much time I have left. I'm probably gone over. 1 minute? This will be quick. Okay, full circle. Here's where it is. Had another chaotic relationship. 2016, I moved to Covina, California. Actually, it was Redondo, or Rancho Cucamonga, and then did this chaotic relationship with someone there. That ended up nuts. Things went crazy. I bounced. I had to change phone numbers, all kinds of stuff to get the hell out of that. It was gnarly. And then I went through this whole spell of trying to figure out who I am and what's going on. I went through a homeless spell when I lived out there in Covina. I did a bunch of work for a bunch of people in construction there, and they never could pay quite enough for me to make bills, and it ended up causing me harm. I sacrificed all my needs to be the great guy in the meeting, to be like the one everyone wanted around because he always helps, and I was feeding my ego instead of feeding myself. And as what it ended up doing was I lived for about 3.5 months in my truck with my dog at the 502 Club in Covina. I slept there every night, and I had a random friend here and there that would invite me to go and sleep, and that's with double-digit sobriety, guys. But I got to learn a lesson in life. I got to learn about what it means to pay bills and do whatever it takes to do what's right. And even if you are wrong, you own it, you say it, and you keep moving. And you do whatever they ask you to fix it. What I want don't matter. Because what I want gets me stuck inside a truck with a dog in Covina, all by myself, buying $3 chili cheese dogs from the little bar right there inside that, and convincing the manager to pop the side of the pool table, because I don't know what else to do right now but shoot pool and go nuts. I got through all that, and I still kept working. I still kept doing stuff. Next thing you know, I got this job. I'm building a tattoo shop over on the west side, and then that kind of turns weird. I go work at the electric motorcycle company here in El Segundo, and then I got dropped in all of y'all's laps. That was about 2 years ago. And then I'm renting a room out in Glendora, and I'm driving all the way to El Segundo every day. and then back. So like my 8-hour day is turning into 12 and 14, and it's really starting to wear me out, and it's harming my dog because he has to get stuck in a bedroom this whole time and just not working out. So me and a buddy from there start looking for a place. I got 1 minute till we're supposed to go. So anyways, God gave me this badass pad right on the fucking Esplanade for way cheaper than what I should ever be able to afford. That's just the bottom line. That right there happened. I made a call to my God. I was like, all right, dude, like, I need something now because they want me out and this is killing me. And I started making phone calls, and next thing you know, I'm parked in front of this condo right there on the Esplanade. And me being the old thug I was, I have 10 grand in my backpack, and I walk in and look at this place, and I decide with my buddy, we're getting it, and that's all there is to it. Unzip the backpack, take a picture, send it to the realtor, and he's like, what's this? And I said, what's it take to get this place? And he goes, fill out an app, bro. I'm like, I don't know what you mean. He's like, give me your email, sends it to me, I fill it out, and then I pay like $5 grand to get it, right? You know, I'm like, that's just, so that's how that worked. And now, what I have coming up in the next little bit is right now I have a pretty rad relationship. We've had our emotional times, and by all tentative purpose, I'm going to tell you right now, what me and Megan have should not work. I'm 44, she's 21. I met her before she was even really new. And now we have a beautiful baby about to be born. Her family has welcomed me and accepted me because of the man I am today. Because the guy I show up as. I work in high fashion, and I build custom homes for the elites of Hollywood. I just met different people at different places. They called me when they needed what I could do. I showed up and I did it, and I haven't been able to leave yet. It's crazy. Like, we did a full shoot for Marc Jacobs and Bella Hadid in New York, the company and the people that I'm tied with on that. But how does that happen to a dude that was a 113-pound tweaker? How does that happen? All I can say is that God's given me a life beyond my wildest dreams as long as I stay out of the way. As long as I don't worry about what I want and I go, how can I help and what can I do to help this situation? And when I live that way, everything works out. And with that, I'll shut the fuck up.
I'd like to thank our speakers and our readers. I'm going to mispronounce your name. T, Chris, Kathy, Chad, give them a hand. This is a large